Hi, hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Reverend Donna Seraphina. I am a spiritualist reverend and I am a psychic medium. In 2020, Tylee Ryan, a missing teenager, was brought to me by my own deceased daughter, Nicole. I sat down and did a reading with this young woman, accompanied by a man who later turned out to be her stepfather. At the time, I had no idea who he was and wasn't even sure if he was a hitchhiker, because some spirits will try to do that. So the guy kept complaining to me that he was shot, and then I finally told him if he, step back and while I talked to this teenage girl, if you're still here, I'll talk to you. And then when he started telling me his story, I told him I will Google it after this reading, and if what you're saying can be confirmed, then I will make it public. So after the reading, the first reading, I looked at who to send this to, because I don't have television reception and I had not seen anything on YouTube, but what had appeared to me was a missing poster. And as soon as the missing poster appeared, my daughter, actually the air started waving next to me, and I could feel the presence of my daughter Nicole so strongly that I actually stood up so I was face to face with her and said, "Hello, Nicole." And as soon as I did that, Tylee Ryan appeared where I could see her with my physical eyes. How they appear often, like when they appear that strongly, is translucent, but you don't really see through them. And she was, of course, much shorter than my daughter, who is 5'8", and Tylee was much shorter. And here was this teenage girl, and my daughter Nicole communicated to me that she brought her to me because her mother had murdered her and she needed my help. And I didn't believe it, and I looked to the teenage girl and I'm like, no, mothers don't murder their teenage daughters. And Tylee was affirmatively trying to convince me that yes, my mother murdered me. And then I looked back to Nicole, and Nicole was trying to convince me that her mother murdered her. And if it had not been for Nicole, I would not have done anything with this Tylee Ryan spirit who was trying to convince me, especially when you hear the first reading I did. So this is 4 months. So the remains were recovered on June 9th of 2020, and this reading happened January 30th of 2020, so 4 months before that. And when I did the reading afterwards, I looked up, well, where do I send this? And there was press releases or press conferences. They had no idea what state the children were in. The media was speculating that these children were off in a prepper camp and that this might be a custody issue or, just welfare check thing, and that they had hidden the children because they were mad at the grandma or whatever. So the states, they didn't know where they were. Idaho, Montana, Utah, Arizona, Hawaii. So I ended up spending the day. I wrote a 9-page email, which is on my website, Lori Vallow Daybell.com, and you can find a lot more information. I'll be putting all my files on there, so you can find a lot more information there. I wrote a 9-page letter. I sent it to law enforcement agencies in every single state, multiple. I spent the entire day doing it, and even just governments, just any emails I could find that could potentially be relevant, and looking for the one law enforcement agent with an open mind. And I made the decision to upload the first reading. So I had been doing these unsolved murders, just not all the time, but a couple of times a year I would do one if it came a feeling that I should do it. And I would email to law enforcement, but I never considered putting it on the internet, just obvious safety reasons. And I did put it on the internet, and at the time I did that, I really wasn't thinking about the public watching it. I was thinking about law enforcement and any searchers that also might have an open mind that it could potentially help. So I don't know if I gave it a title at that time or if I called it Tylee Ryan Most Important at that time. But I didn't even put photos. I just put one photo of the missing flyer about the kids for 5 seconds. So I myself would remember which case it was because I did work on multiple cases. And it turned out that there was a lot of interest in it, and a lot of people wanted to hear it, and a lot of them wanted to attack me. A lot of them thought I was crazy. A lot of them thought this could never happen. And, I was equally shocked when I did the reading. In fact, in my lifetime, I have never stopped a reading in the middle, so terrified that I needed to pray. And you can hear at the point where I say, wait a minute, I don't know how this could be going on in my brain. That was when I was watching them with the fire burning Tylee, and I watched them as they took part of her leg and made sandwiches, and and then they were laughing. They were like standing around the fire laughing, and then I saw a demon walk across or go across the grass and go right into Lori's body, and they were just all laughing while they were eating these sandwiches. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen. So I stopped the reading. I'm like, how could this be happening? Nobody would do this. I mean, I'm even saying that in there. Nobody would do this. This is crazy. How could this be? How could I be having this in my vision? And so then I turned it back on, and I said, okay, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to open up again and let them show me. And then I'm like, oh my God. They just, boom, put it right in my face again. And so then later on in the reading, you'll hear way at the end where everything starts getting jumbled. What they were trying to show me there is they were trying to show me that all these murders are involved, because they kept just whirling through all these different murders. And I'm like, oh my God, all these people are getting murdered. I thought this was a pretty simple missing kids case. And then there was one more thing I wanted to tell you. Oh, okay. So apparently, like we know now, and I didn't know at the time, that they had started investigating Chad and Lori and trying to figure out Lori had killed her husband, or her brother had shot her husband, and she's facing charges for that now. Alex Cox is dead, and by then he died December 12th, 2019, I believe, or somewhere right around there. And so the police were investigating Lori Vallow at that time, and they were very well aware of what Chad Daybell's property looked like. Now, one of the detectives, his name's Detective Dave Hope, he, in a way, is Chad Daybell's brother-in-law, but I don't know the technicalities, and I know people get really upset about the technicalities of words. His son is married to Matt Daybell's daughter, and Matt Daybell only lived up on the same street 0.8 of a mile away on the Henry Fork River. Now, one of my suspicions is that's where Chad and Alex may have thrown some tools there. They may have walked through that property. There's something called the 20-foot path that was literally called that, and I did mention I used that name in the readings. But they also could have went right across the street. There's a public, very private, full of bushes and stuff where people don't see you, and it's a public boat launch. So they could have gone there. And then, I don't know that I talk about trapper in this, but the word trapper, they would show me a trapper walking across the scene all the time. And I never could have found that on Google, because officially by the government, that street was renamed to a numbered street. However, the locals left the sign up called Trapper Lane, which is in between Chad and his brother's house. So it's like, quarter mile, half mile from Chad's on the same street. and it still has the sign. So after they found the bodies, then the neighbors start sending me this stuff. Prior to them finding the bodies, I couldn't get anyone to even believe me. Not a single person who knew Chad would believe me, and nobody that knew Lori. Nobody would believe me that these two devout Mormons, all respected in their church, would do such a thing. And I was trying to convince them that yes, they would, and I'm seeing them do this. So I'm aware they found part of Tylee's organs and part of them missing. And in the reading, I also talk about them chopping her up and dismembering her. But they also, I say, they cut her open and I see them lifting organs out. And, at that point, it just gets more and more graphic. So normally when I do a murder, when I visualize or visions a murder, go into trance, however you want to call it, normally the first time I'll see the murder and who did what and stuff. And then if I go back in, I'll usually, the murder's happening, but I can kind of walk around the room because it's like 3D, and I'm like walking around looking for potential evidence that could be helpful. And honestly, during these readings, it never quit being so traumatic. Like, it was hard to ever find new evidence because I was so traumatized every time. That's what I'm saying. These murders that Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow suffered were horrific. There's no quick way. There's no way, oh, I hope they didn't suffer. Yes, they did suffer. They both suffered. They suffered for a long time. And these murders took longer than expected. And that should definitely be taken into account during sentencing. But, I'm hoping, of course, that neither of them ever get out of prison their whole life. So with that, we're going to go through the first reading. And almost everything in there has been confirmed already. But there's some things people ask me about on a regular basis. They'll email me with some questions. So we'll go over the reading and see what's been validated and what hasn't.